Welcome back, guys. I have an interesting topic to talk about today. I'm very excited to talk about it. So I have been asked quite a few times how I got started farming, and I love to talk about it. And I was thinking about it and I thought, wow, this would make a really good video. So I decided to make a video. So I'm going to talk about how I got started farming, and also how one of you or somebody could get started farming if they want to. I have been farming for, this will be my 5th year of row crop farming. So a little bit of history. I grew up with my dad. He worked a full-time job, but he hay farmed about between 150 and 200 acres, which for hay is a pretty good amount. There's just a lot more time, equipment involved in hay. So he did that throughout basically my whole life, and I helped him until I was probably 19, and then I got a job as a welder, and I worked an insane amount of hours, so I didn't really help on the farm for quite a few years. So I didn't help on the farm for quite a few years. Well, then there was a time where I kind of started helping my dad a little more, and I would also go out and help a man. Some good friends of mine worked for him, and I would go out and help him as well. He was always looking for people who were kind of handy and good at operating equipment, and I would go out and help him as well. And I started really enjoying, doing farming, and I more so enjoyed the row crop aspect of it. So I was kind of transitioning out of something and needed to transition into something else. And I decided that I was going to farm full-time or semi-full-time. And 5 years in, I'm still not farming 100% full-time. Don't get me wrong, I do quite a few acres, but it just helps to have some other streams of income when you're trying to get this thing really going. So we'll talk about that more later. Well, when I decided I was going to farm full-time, I had a neighbor who was only a few miles away. Never really helped him much with crops or anything like that, because he didn't really need help. He doesn't do a ton of acres, 200 acres, around 200 acres of row crop, and then 200 acres of hay. And I went and talked to him, and I swung a deal with him that, if I could I use his equipment, I'd help him out a lot. And to be honest with you, he would have let me use it regardless. But long story short, that is how I was able or possible to get started, as far as from the actual equipment aspect. So the first year I farmed, I used his tractor, his planter. I used his disc. I had bought a tractor a couple years prior, because me and my dad are big International fans, and I found a 4-wheel drive International 1466, which I use to this day, and I'm sure you guys have seen it on the channel. I found that for a really good price. Because we're International fans, I picked it up, and it worked out really good because I was able to use that. I've used that a ton, have to this point. And so I would run his disc with my tractor, and then I would also do a lot of his disc and as much as I could with my tractor as well, just because just because he was allowing me to use it for essentially free. And again, I ended up planting. I tried to plant as much of his crop as I could. I tried to help him out as much as I could, because he was basically letting me use most of his stuff for free. I did that for the first 2 years. As far as for the combining, I rented the combine that he rented the first year, was going to rent it the second year, and we just had horrible rain, and it was just getting horribly muddy, and it was so muddy. And I was really afraid that I was not going to be able to get my crop, or the rest of my crop, I think we were about halfway done at that point, out with the gentleman's combine that I was renting. So that is the fall I went out and got my own combine. I got a very good deal on it because it was a very big machine. Now, it was still very expensive, but that was a very smart decision. And I would recommend anybody who's going to do a lot of acres to just go out and get their own combine. Now, there's a lot of guys who don't farm a lot of acres, and it's just not worth it for them to own a combine with how much it costs to maintain them. Being that I bought the combine, I am able to do a lot of custom combining, and so I do a lot of custom combining that has been very helpful, going back to the whole, you know, different streams of income to try to get the farm really going. Anyways, third year I bought my planter, and I spent a lot of money on my planter and combine because those are very, very important pieces of equipment. I also bought a disc and a set of baskets the middle of probably almost to the end of my second year of doing tillage. So I used it to finish up and then used it the third year. Now this is my fourth year, going into my fourth year, and I pretty much have everything of my own to be able to farm. Now I'm not saying it's all super nice. I am going to try to pick up a sprayer this spring, I think. I'm going to probably finance that. But that is another very key, important piece of equipment to be able to be very timely with crops. So I am going to try to do that. And going back to I pretty much have everything I need to do my crops, to farm for my own self. I actually just picked up a Versatile 835. I was able to get it for a very, very good price, which I will have talked about, or will talk about in a video very close to this. And that is really going to help me out, because disking with my 1466, pulling my disc with my 1466 is very, very hard on it, and is probably over 100% load for that tractor. So I feel very good to be able to use that 835 for tillage, and then now I can plant with my 1466. And so on the other hand, my dad, I basically use his farm as kind of like a home base, and that has been very, very helpful as well. He doesn't have a lot of implements or tools that I can use, because he does hay, he doesn't do, you know, row crop. But I have used several of his tractors, and he's used mine as well. But I have used several of his tractors, and actually these last 2 years, well, this past year and part of the year prior, I used his 886 International to do all my planting. If it wasn't for my neighbor and my dad, I don't honestly know how I would have got started. I'm sure I could have, but it would be very difficult without that. And so one thing I want to say to encourage anyone who's listening and might want to get started is, go reach out to those farmers who are already established and could maybe help you out to get you started. I've heard lots of stories of older gentlemen who don't really have anybody to take the farm over, and so they work out a transition plan, you know, so you may have to end up buying them out eventually. And also, it's a way that you could get started farming without having that huge upfront initial cost. Now, I know there are several guys who, you know, like the FSA, the Farm Service Agency, or there's other ways as well. They'll get big chunk loans. So say you get a loan for 150, 200, 250,000 to go out and get your first set of equipment, of a lineup of equipment to be able to use. But again, you know, you have a bad year or two, and those payments can really hinder you very quickly if everything doesn't go right. So again, without my dad or my neighbor, I don't honestly know how I would have got started. I'm sure I would have, but it would have been much, much harder. It has been very, very nice to be able to work with my neighbor and my dad to get started and to get me where I am today. And now, like, I plant my neighbor's corn as well, because I bought a much nicer planter than what he had, and so he sold his, and I plant his corn, and I will until the day he's done farming. So anyways, that's kind of a synopsis of how I got started, and hopefully an encouragement to some people of different ways to be able to get started. Because, like I said, you could go out and get that big loan for equipment to get started, but there's also another big aspect. You need a lot of capital or money for inputs, and we'll talk about that probably in another video, the second part. So, you know, to be able to swing both, it could be very tricky, and you don't want to put yourself in a scenario where if you have a rough year, it's going to make you flop and you're not going to make it. You don't want to do that. I highly recommend trying to find somebody, if you are seriously interested in getting started, to work with. I'm sure there's people out there that would be more than willing to help somebody get started. Anyway, so this will be my 5th year farming. I'm hoping to do right around 400 acres this year. Not a ton, still a decent amount. People ask me all the time about, you know, income, and it's obviously the farm makes money, but there's a lot of money that needs to be reinvested back in to keep growing and building and be able to do more acres. I do a ton of welding, mechanic work, working on cars, tractors. I do dirt work. I do all kinds of things for extra income to kind of help the farm, you know, keep afloat. And my wife also does have a part-time job. She doesn't work a ton, but she makes good money, and that also helps as well. And then I also do the custom combining in the fall. That has been such a blessing the last 2 years as I've been trying to figure out the liquid fertilizer and had a couple tough years. So that has been very, very nice. Again, a little more risk involved with that. I have a pretty good size payment on that machine, but it has made me a lot of money, and I can get all my crops in when I want and combine them how I want. There's going to be different scenarios. If you're only wanting to do 50 to 100 acres, I don't feel like it's worth owning a combine. If you're going to do 150 to 200 or more, I feel like it is worth having your own combine. And a big part of it's being this. In our area, custom combining is around $50 an acre. And so, you know, you take that on 100 acres, that's $5,000. On 200 acres, that's $10,000. On 300 acres, that's $15,000. At that point, it is just worth it to have your own machine. Now, I do custom combine for a couple guys who have quite a few acres and even have their own combine. My parts bill for my combine this year was it was over $10,000. Now I did a lot of custom acres, so it's well worth it. And then in the same sense, to me, I like doing the custom acres so that I can keep my combine in very, very good shape for my crops as well. So again, some different things to think about. It is definitely possible to get started. I am not going to tell you it's going to be easy. I'm not going to tell you you're going to work 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. You will work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week a lot of times, or, you know, around that. Not saying that's every week, but there's definitely going to be a lot of weeks that are that way. If you're willing to do that, you'll succeed. And really with anything in life, if you're willing to put in the work and the time, you'll succeed. If you're not willing to put in the work, you will not succeed. Plain and simple. But anyways, I hope you guys found this interesting, something different, and maybe it'll make some people think. And I'll tell you, I love farming. I do. I'm not going to tell you it's easy all the time. In fact, this last year has been a pretty rough year, but that's all right. We're going to get through it. I'm very excited for this year using the different fertilizer and what we're going to do. I'm just about done wrapping all that up, getting it all ordered. Probably we'll try to take possession of it at the end of the month, this being January, and very excited for what we are going to be doing this year. So, all right, I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.